Last Friday, U.S. authorities released another batch of files related to Jeffrey Epstein. Epstein, if you need reminding, was a convicted sex offender. He died in a New York prison back in 2019 while awaiting another trial for running a sex trafficking operation involving underage girls. Now, this latest release, made up of more than 3 million documents, images, and videos, gives new insights into Epstein's ties to the rich and powerful. It is also fueling speculation that Epstein could have been working for Russia. The suspicion is that Epstein would lure his powerful connections into sexual encounters, which were then used for the purposes of blackmail. Now, this tactic is synonymous with Russian intelligence, who happen to have their very own name for this compromising blackmail material. It's called kompromat. At least one European leader appears to be taking the potential Russian connection very seriously. Polish Prime Minister Donald Tusk. He has ordered a probe into whether Epstein's activities were directed by the Kremlin.
A growing number of commentators and experts assume that it is highly probable that this was a premeditated operation by Russian intelligence. This so-called honey trap, a sweet bait, a trap set for the elites of the Western world, primarily the United States. It is increasingly likely that Russian intelligence services co-organized this operation. I don't need to tell you how serious that is for the security of the Polish state. This can only mean that they possess compromising materials against many leaders still active today.
All right, for more on this honey trap, I want to pull in now Bartosz Wielinski. He's the deputy editor-in-chief of the Polish daily newspaper, the Gazeta Wyborcza. Bartosz, it's good to have you with us. Do we know what's in the Epstein files that prompted Donald Tusk to launch this investigation?
Well, there are contacts between Jeffrey Epstein and guy called Bielakov, who used to be a former economic advisor to Vladimir Putin. And, well, you know, if you are advisor to Vladimir Putin, if you work with the Kremlin as a Russian national, you must have some connections with the secret services. You must be involved in all those dealing by FSB, so the successor of KGB. Everything in Russia is a special operation. Everything dealing with the West, itself is a special operation. They consider it as a matter of foreign intelligence, and there are multiple threats. And you know the method of dealing, the network Epstein created. That looks like has been, copied and pasted from old Soviets textbook of the espionage to create a network of gaining, those kompromats, those materials. Photographs made during, most uncomfortable situation, chantage and stuff like that. This raises a suspicions. Our prime minister didn't say who is to blame. Didn't say who was for sure dealing with Russians. He sees that the entire situation is very dangerous. There are, suppositions, and that has to be cleared. So they started with an analytical job
but Bartosz,
for the moment, and that's probably an inquiry. Yes.
Let me just, I want to make this clear though, Bartosz. I mean, we're not talking about there being strong evidence that Jeffrey Epstein was working with Russian intelligence, right? These are suspicions that we're talking about, right?
Yes, indeed. But the suspicions are so serious, and the situation is so dire. We live now in. We have a war in Ukraine. We have a hybrid war in entire Europe. We have the sabotage actions. Done by Russia in Poland, in Germany. We don't know what happened in Spain. I mean, this terrible accident with the trains. We have a drone assault in Poland. So many things are happening, and suddenly we learn about global network of pedophilia and espionage, which is really frightening. And well, if you sum that up, you need to be very cautious, and you need to know who you're dealing with. There are some Polish names on the list.
Yeah.
There are some Polish girls that possibly have been recruited by Epstein or one of his henchmen in Poland.
What about the
10 or 15
investigation?
years ago.
Bartosz,
Yes,
what
and that
about
also has
the
to be clear.
investigation? How is the investigation going to work? Do we know?
Yes, we know. The prosecutor general will be the head of the investigation, and the first step would be to analyze everything that has been revealed from the Epstein files or from other sources, and then there will be connections analyzed, and then, well, in criminal cases there will be a criminal prosecution. In cases regarding counterintelligence, there will be further analytical job done, probably with the allies from NATO and from other countries, looking for, well, Russian operatives in the network, if there are any. Of course, this is very vague. It must be checked, but. Actually, the experts say that smells Russian, terrible Russian stench, what gets out of it. And it's funny that nobody came to this conclusion earlier. This is nothing new. The Epstein case that's for a decade since we first learned about this procedure.
Bartosz,
funny, nobody learned about it before, that the Russians could be involved.
I know that Donald Tusk says that Epstein's activities could pose a national security threat to Poland. Help us understand that. I mean, how can his activities be a threat, considering that Jeffrey Epstein is dead? He's no longer alive.
Well, what he did before. We know about politicians, we know about diplomats who are giving him access to restricted material. I mean, to the classified informations also regarding security of the NATO.
Do you know, Bartosz? Do you know, Bartosz, the nature of that information? Is there anything that you can, divulge here tonight? I mean, what was shared that could be so bad?
We don't know such details, but there is also a supposition that among the information he was given by those Norwegian diplomats, by the British politicians, were also NATO secrets. If he known about the measures taken for the bailout of Greece during the Euro crisis, he could have learned about NATO defense plans for the eastern flank of the alliance. Why not? That also has to be checked and proved. If Russians have our defense plans, that could mean a disaster for the NATO. This is an extremely serious business here, and interestingly, that has been tolerated for so long. Nobody seen that coming.
I know that Epstein's activities have raised the question whether or not Russia was involved in blackmailing political leaders. But if we put the kompromat aside for a moment, what kind of other operations does Russian intelligence carry out to sway Polish domestic politics in Moscow's favor? I mean, what comes to mind when you're thinking about the way Russian intelligence manipulates Poland?
Well, let me start that this is a hybrid war. So this is almost a war. We live in such a pre-war period, as our Prime Minister used to say. We have two different types of operation. The first is kinetic. I mean, the saboteurs who were committing arsons in Poland. Few of them were arrested and even sentenced. They are migrants from Belarus, from Ukraine, that have been recruited by the Russian special services. And that accident, that blowing up the rails close to Warsaw a few months ago, was also caused by such saboteurs. This is the first sort of actions, and this is the most dangerous, most acute thing. And the other thing is, constant propaganda operation, manipulation over social platforms, spreading, fake news regarding Ukraine, regarding the war in the Ukraine. The Russians are aware that they can't make Poles to Russian lovers. Nobody in Poland would believe that Putin is a man of peace and so on. But they easily could trigger anti-Ukrainian, anti-Western sentiments. And, they are quite effective with that because we observe a rise in terms of anti-Ukrainian sentiment in Poland. They're using, some tensions that exist between Polish and Ukrainian community living in Poland, and this is a serious issue. And well, it's hard to defend yourself because, Elon Musk isn't working, isn't playing the same team as we are. Unfortunately, he's supporting somebody else.
Yeah. Well, we know that you will stay on this story, Bartosz, as will we, and we appreciate you taking the time tonight to tell us exactly how, it's being seen in Poland. It's an important part of this story. We appreciate your time. Thank you.
Thanks.